Hey guys. So the other day I was trying my hand at some different crossbow builds to use in Stalker Corrupted Dungeons. I'd been trying a lot with the heavy crossbow, a regular crossbow, and bought a very cheap one-handed crossbow set to see if I could win any fights. Now, the first invade that I got with my one-handed crossbow set was from a popular streamer called Beast1K. He was playing a very mobile longbow build, something that really easily counters my stationary one-handed crossbow build. When I inspected his gear, I was somewhat surprised to see that he was running mostly T8 equivalent gear for his build, which gave him an average of about 1100 IP after the IP reduction from Stalker Corrupted Dungeons. I thought it was a little strange, but then I remembered back to a fight that I had a long time ago with another popular streamer, which is Fakturka. He was running a Shadowcaller build and was also running about T8 equivalent in Stalker Corrupted Dungeons, which also gave him an average IP of about 1100 after the item power reduction. So obviously, Stalker Corrupted Dungeons' main appeal over Slayer Corrupted Dungeons are the fact that as long as you have some spec, you can go in with mostly flat 4 gear and reach an average IP of 1000 fairly easily. Whereas in Slayers, you can enter with cheapish gear worth like anywhere from 150,000 to maybe 300,000 silver, but you always have that fear of being IP crushed by someone running full 8.3 gear. Now this is because of the fact that Stalker Corrupted Dungeons reduce any item power over 1000 by 80%. Meaning you need to have an item power of 1500 to reach 1100 item power in Stalker. In Slayer Corrupteds, your IP gets reduced by 50% after 1300 IP, meaning it's much more valuable to go in with the maximum item power that you can achieve, as it won't be reduced quite as much as in Stalker Corrupteds. But these two streamers that I fought were clearly IP crushing in Stalker Corrupted Dungeons. So I thought to myself, is it realistically worth it to enter a Stalker Corrupted Dungeon in T8 gear, easily worth 500,000 plus, just for a very slight advantage over other players? We're talking like 100 IP. So I tried it myself with the one-handed spear, and I can tell you from my experience that yes, it is definitely incredibly worth it to spend more money on your gear to ensure that you have a definitive advantage over other players in Stalker Dungeons. And when you really think about it, it's not very surprising. Most players choose to enter Stalker Dungeons in gear that is as cheap as it can possibly be. A lot of players will run with flat 4 gear, and some players will spend big bucks and use a T6 weapon to be able to use all of their weapon abilities. But for the most part, players will generally choose to spend as little as possible to hope to gain as much as possible from a kill. And if they end up losing, then it doesn't much matter, as they only spent like 30 to 50,000 silver on their gear. Now this theory is kind of fundamentally flawed in my opinion after thinking about it. If you're going to fight people in a quote-unquote fair 1v1 environment where you won't have interference from gankers or groups of players that could easily CC you and give you no chance of winning the fight, why would you spend silver on a build that is built for the purpose of not being too costly if you lose? Given the fact that you will only ever fight one opponent in a Corrupted Dungeon match, you should do everything in your power to give you an advantage over that opponent, and not be focused on what happens if you lose a fight. The other massive benefit that I found while doing this is that you become so much more efficient in your gameplay if your gear is worth more. So let's say that you buy a Corrupted Dungeon build worth like 50,000 silver and you go into a Stalker Dungeon. If you happen to win your fight and earn, let's say, around 100 to 200,000 silver, then you're almost definitely going to exit the dungeon and bank your loot, as you just profited like double, or in some cases even like quadruple what your set is worth. So it would be foolish to go into another fight fight with so much risk in your inventory. But exiting a corrupted dungeon implies that you have to run back or journey back to Caerleon or the Black Zone portal that you went out from, bank or sell your loot, resupply on consumables, and go out of Caerleon or Black Zone portal and find another corrupted dungeon. If you combine those steps together, you could be looking at about 3 to 5 minutes of downtime, and maybe even more if you get unlucky finding another corrupted dungeon. Now you might be thinking that 3 to 5 minutes to secure loot and make sure that you're profiting off of your fights is a worthwhile time investment, but I'm here to tell you that you're dead freaking wrong, my dude. If you spend the extra silver to get a set that gives you a strong enough advantage in Stalker dungeons, you now have such a high percentage win rate that almost no amount of risk in your inventory is worth going back to town to bank. This gives you the benefit of being able to chain your corrupted dungeons over and over again until your inventory inevitably becomes completely full of loot, and in my experience that's worth anywhere from 1 to 2 million silver if you're only looting the valuable items. So now you're doing several more corrupted dungeons per hour, getting a ton more profit than if you were to be banking after almost every kill. So not only are you getting more profit, but you're gaining way more fame and infamy, and even Conqueror's Challenge might per hour. Now before you go and purchase a way more expensive set than you're used to running in Stalker Corrupteds, I just want to say that this strategy is most effective for builds that are able to kite, reset fights, and in general have more movement speed than your opponent. That being said, I think my top picks for doing this strategy would be the Whispering Bow, Longbow, One-Handed Spear, Blight Staff, One-Handed Frost, Chill Howl, Broadsword, and Claymore. I personally don't have too much experience playing Cursed and Corrupted dungeons, but I would imagine that the Demonic Staff, Cursed Skull, Life Curse, and even One-Handed Cursed Staff would also work quite well with this, but I'm not gonna give any guarantees. So originally I was planning on doing another video where I buy 10 sets and see how much I profit from them in corrupted dungeons, but after this fight with Beast 1K and trying this out myself, I haven't lost a single fight in 16 matchups. I really haven't even had a fight that was that close either. And after winning so many fights in a row, I knew that I had to talk about this, because I really haven't seen anyone else talking about this strategy or even acknowledging it. And even while watching Beast 1K's stream, people were asking him about why exactly was he running so high tier gear. So to wrap up this video, if you have a weapon or set that you are incredibly comfortable playing and that you already have a high win rate with using cheap gear, I would definitely recommend buying a more expensive set or Stalker Corrupted dungeons. I would recommend that you try to stay within around 1500 IP though, as with high specs you can reach that fairly cheaply, and I don't think that going higher than that would be too worth it. Obviously you could just buy a full set of 8.3 and only do Stalker dungeons with an IP advantage of almost 200 over anyone else there, but you would have to win like 40 to 60 fights in a row before your set is even paid off. With T8 equivalent gear worth like 1 million silver, you can pay off your set in only about 10 fights, meaning that it definitely hits a sweet spot in being able to get an IP advantage over your opponents, while also not being too costly if you happen to lose. So anyway guys, I'd love to hear what you think about all of this in the comment section down below. If you have any questions, as always, I'll be more than happy to answer. And I really want to know what you guys think. Should I do a loot from 10 sets of One-Handed Spear video that lasts like 8 hours because my win rate is probably close to like 95%? Anyway, thanks for watching the video guys, and I hope you have a good one.